So the goal of disc golf is to go from here all the way down there. But how do we do that the right way? Today I'm going to talk through some of the basics of disc golf, how to play, how to follow the rules. I can't possibly talk through all of the PDGA rules in one video, but I'll give you an idea of the essentials so that you know how to play the sport. One of the first things that you're going to need to play disc golf is, well, a disc. I grew up throwing around frisbees with my family and I loved it. I played some ultimate frisbee in college, including a little bit on the club team for a little while, and I really enjoyed it. But for disc golf, frisbees are not really ideal. In fact, discs are an intended improvement upon frisbees. They're designed to fly faster and further than an ultimate disc. If a frisbee's all you have, you can still experience disc golf and get out on a course and play around, but having discs makes the experience much better, especially if you can learn how to grip and throw a disc. Your experience on the disc golf course can drastically improve. If you're looking to get yourself some discs for the first time, I recommend finding a starter pack that'll usually consist of 3 discs, a driver, a mid-range, and a putter. I personally like the R2 Axiom starter set and the R2 MVP starter set. They're both fairly cheap and have good high-quality discs. Those cost around $32. There are some options that are cheaper, like around $20, which is pretty cheap for 3 discs. Those discs might not last you as long, but they're a good option too. I'll link a few starter sets in the description if you'd like to look them up and see if they're interesting. Even with a starter set, disc golf is pretty inexpensive to try out. Just be careful, because if you really get pulled into disc golf, you'll find yourself carrying around a bag with over 20 discs in it. And trust me, my disc collection is 10 times what I carry with me on the course. The next thing you're going to need is a course to actually play disc golf at. I recommend UDisc for finding courses near you. You can use the free version of the app to search for courses in your area or across the country or even around the world. You can keep a couple of scorecards for free, but if you want to track your stats over the long term, you're going to want to pay for the premium version like I do. You can use UDisc on a web browser too. You don't need the app, but the app is super convenient and very helpful. If you're lucky, you probably have a few free-to-play courses pretty close by. I'm fortunate. I'm in Charlotte, the #2 disc golf destination in the United States, so I'm nothing but blessed. So once you're out on the course, you found hole 1, you're going to want to check to see if your course has T signs. T signs will give you relevant information such as what par is for that hole, hole distance, out of bounds areas, etc. So you're finally ready to play your first hole, you're on the tee pad, you're looking at your basket, and you're asking yourself, what's the best way to get from here to there in as few shots as possible? Well, this is one really cool thing about disc golf. It's pretty much up to you how you want to throw the disc to get there. Yes, there are some fundamental elements to how to throw a disc correctly with different forms and styles, but as a whole, you're able to throw the disc with whatever style is comfortable for you. If you're planning to play disc golf long term and you'd like to improve and see how good you can get, I recommend checking out different YouTube videos. There are great tutorials with different throwing forms and styles that will help you analyze how you can best improve your throwing in disc golf. So I don't have time to explain all the rules of disc golf here, but here are some of the basic and fundamentals to playing the sport correctly. The first thing is that when you're throwing, you need to find the teeing area. Usually this is a concrete, turf, or carpet tee pad. Sometimes it's just a marked spot that you have to throw behind, but that teeing area is where you need to be when you throw your first shot for each hole. You need to have at least one supporting point in the teeing area, and you can't be both on and off the tee pad at the same time. No Schrodinger's disc golf allowed. After the disc leaves your hand, you are allowed to step off the tee pad with no penalty. If all goes well, you should be at least a little bit closer to the basket for your next throw. Now that you're off the tee pad and out, hopefully in the fairway somewhere, the rules are going to be similar but a little bit different than from the tee pad. So first of all, instead of having a large throwing area to stand in, we're going to have a small lie that's going to be the area we have to have a supporting point in. So the lie is right behind your disc and just a little bit smaller than a piece of paper. It's 7.8 inches across and 11.8 inches deep, or 20 centimeters by 30 centimeters if you want to make it confusing. When you let go of the disc, you need to have one supporting point in your lie. However, unlike the tee pad, you are allowed to have a supporting point that is not in your lie, but it cannot be closer to the target than your lie is. As long as you have a comfortable stance that allows you to throw, you have one supporting point in your lie, you can throw the disc and then step out of and past your lie once that disc is out of your hand. So most discs are just a little bit more than 20 centimeters in diameter. So a good way to quickly measure your lie when you're out in the field is to just keep your foot behind your disc. If it's off to the side, it's going to be outside of your lie. If it's more than a foot behind your disc, it's going to be outside of your lie. I almost forgot to mention, you're also allowed to use a mini marker to mark your lie. You place the mini marker on the front of your disc, on the edge that's closest to the basket. This allows you to get your lie just a few inches closer, maybe give you better footing, but most importantly, it lets you pick up your disc and throw it again while still having a marked lie to throw from. Also relevant to throwing once you're off the tee pad is if you're playing with a group of people, the person who's furthest away from the basket throws first, and they keep throwing until they're no longer the furthest person away from the basket. Then the new furthest person throws. This helps avoid people throwing at the same time and distracting or even throwing at each other. So you've got yourself a putt. And yes, this is a different hole. There's a lot of people out on the course today. I don't want to slow anybody down. So here's an important element about putting. You can putt from any distance that you really want to, the form, the style of a putt, but the putting area has different rules. So the putting area, or as it's most commonly called, the circle, is 32.8 feet, or if you want to be confusing, 10 meters. Within this area, you not only have to have a supporting point in your lie, but you need to maintain balance in and behind or beside your lie until your disc comes to rest. Even if your putt is going into the basket, you still need to let it hit the chains, fall in, or get stuck and settle and stop moving before you take your step forward to go get it. If you want more advice about putting, I have a putting video on my channel that you can check out. Just to be clear, the rules that I've talked about so far are just a portion of the rules that govern exactly how you should play the sport of disc golf. At the same time, tons of casual players will just walk up to their disc, pick it up, and throw it again without marking their lie. If you're playing with a group of your buddies casually, a couple of people might be throwing at the same time and not worry about bothering each other. As far as I know, no one will be policing your course and making sure that in your casual round, you're adhering to every single PDGA rule and playing disc golf correctly. However, I still think it's very important to understand the rules, even if you ignore a few of them while you're playing a casual round with friends. Now that you're equipped to play by the basics of the PDGA rules, there are still a few things to go over about courtesy and etiquette. First up is a real tough one. Don't throw things at people. You might think this would be really simple and easy, but you'd probably be surprised how many times I've had a disc almost hit me while I'm out playing disc golf. A disc traveling at 60 miles per hour can do a lot of damage to the face region. A good rule of thumb is if you're playing a par 3, don't throw if somebody is still playing the hole. If it's a par 4 and they're around a corner or on the putting green already, often it's appropriate to throw because you're not going to get close to them. But at the same time, you need to be cautious. Even if you think, I can't possibly throw far enough to hit anybody, you still want to hesitate to throw. You never know what can happen. I have seen some crazy tree kicks that send a disc flying down the fairway. Plus, hearing a disc bash into a tree or even land 40 feet behind me can be really distracting when I'm on the putting green trying to focus up on hitting a 30-footer. If a disc that you throw gets kind of close to a group that's playing and is distracting to them, that's not courteous. In addition to not throwing discs at people, you want to avoid other possible ways of causing distractions. If somebody is on the tee pad or in their lie with their disc in the hand, you don't want to be talking and distracting them when they're trying to focus. You shouldn't be walking around, especially if you're in their line of sight. In general, you also shouldn't be closer to the basket than the person who's throwing, and you shouldn't leave your bag in their way, stuff like that. Basically, distracting anyone who's trying to throw is rude, so try to avoid it. Not everybody wants complete silence, and maybe you and your buddies know that you're all fine with each other chatting while you're throwing and it doesn't bother anybody. But it's still a good idea to keep it in mind because a lot of people do take the sport pretty seriously. The third thing is if you're playing slowly, you should let faster groups through. I'm filming on the course fairly often, so it's very common for someone to come up behind me to wait on the tee pad for me while I'm finishing out a hole. When that happens, I immediately wait for them on the next hole and let them go ahead and play through. Not only do I not want someone impatiently watching me while I'm trying to focus on my filming, but it would just be rude of me to hold them up from the rest of the course just because I'm playing at a slower pace than them. Many new players will take a lot longer to play a hole than more experienced players do. So if somebody's waiting on you when you're finishing up a hole, you should probably let them through on the next tee pad. And on the other side of things, it can be really frustrating if you're stuck behind a slow group, hole after hole, just waiting on them to finish up while you're on the tee pad over and over again. I think it's appropriate after 2 or 3 holes to politely ask if it's okay if you can play through. Almost every time that I've asked to play through a group, they've been totally cool with it and let me play through. When I do play through a group, I want to play fairly quickly. I'm not throwing extra shots, I'm not taking tons of extra time, I'm playing the hole and I'm getting out of their way. Also, make sure that you're not just yelling at somebody while they're trying to throw and ask if you can play through. In one of my practice round videos for the Chainhawk Open, I had a group reach the tee pad behind me while I was about to throw my upshot on a par 3. And instead of waiting for me, while I had the disc in my hand and was starting my reach back, they yelled at me asking if they could play through while I'm filming. That was really frustrating, and I felt like it was extremely rude. Also, after being distracted, I chucked it OB, so that was just a nice bonus. Even though I was pretty frustrated at them for being so rude, I waited on the next tee pad, I let them play through, and I didn't see them again for the rest of my round. Nobody wants to sit around and wait on every hole, but just don't be a jerk about it. If you're holding people up, let them play through, and if you're stuck behind somebody who's taking forever, ask if you can play through without being rude. Fourth, make sure to obey any local park rules and don't litter. Disc golf is a sport that has a very good impact on local communities. As opposed to traditional golf, disc golf courses don't require clearing out nearly as much space to play the sport. Disc golf coincides really well with nature. Because of that, it's even more important to avoid leaving trash all over the course, especially if your course is at a local park, with people walking on trails, playing on a playground, etc. We should all be personally responsible because together we can have a cumulatively positive impact on the reputation of disc golf worldwide, which will only help the availability of courses across the world. Last, if you find a lost disc, try to get it back to the owner. Check to make sure that that disc isn't actually in play for someone. Some fairways run alongside each other, and a nasty tree kick can send your disc ricocheting into somebody else's fairway. Even in a tournament, I have watched somebody walk up, find my disc, and pick it up and start to walk away with it. So pay attention, don't just pick up every disc that you see lying on the ground. Look around first to make sure somebody's not trying to come get it. If it really is a lost disc, it's a good idea to try to get it back to the person who lost it. If your course has a lost and found box, that's one of the easiest ways for that disc to have a chance to get back to its owner. If there's a phone number on it, I like to text or call the person right away. Often, they're still on the course playing, so I can get their disc back to them immediately. I've lost a disc on a course and had someone text me a couple holes later, and I was able to get my disc back and use that disc later on the course. It's really convenient, and I've always appreciated that. Plus, you never know. Sometimes the owner of the disc lost it a year ago, or lives a few states away and doesn't want their disc back. So, there you go, free disc. Even if there's no name or number or identifying marks on the disc, it's still a good idea to maybe check the Facebook group of the local disc golfers. I like to check to see if somebody has posted looking for their own lost disc, and if not, I like to post that I found the disc. If somebody comments and describes the disc, it's theirs. Sometimes a local disc golf store will also run a lost and found disc return program, and that can be a really easy way to drop it off when you can and hope that it gets back to its owner. Most discs don't actually cost too much money, but when you throw a disc well and you know what it does for you, it's a real pain to have to replace that disc. And I know every time somebody has reached out and returned one of my lost discs to me, I've been very, very grateful. Also, friendly reminder, it's a good idea to put your phone number on your disc in case you lose it. Obviously, I couldn't talk about every single PDJ rule in this video, but I think I covered the basic elements of how to play disc golf the right way. If there's a really fundamental part of how to play disc golf that I left out of this video, make sure to let me know. I hope this video inspired you to try disc golf for the first time, or maybe just taught you a few little things about how to play disc golf correctly. Thanks for watching, and I'll catch you guys on the next one.
Turtle.